Hi everyone, I'm absolutely delighted to have Sytse Sijbrandij of Gitlab in this new episode of HitEnter. Gitlab is an open source collaboration platform for developers that is used by the likes of NASA, SpaceX and Alibaba. In this show, Sid talks about how he managed to raise 5.5 million in just 6 months from tier 1 investors and how Y-Combinator helped him to grow his company exceedingly fast. Hi Sid, it's really a pleasure to have you here with us. Can you tell us a bit more about GitLab?
Thanks for having me. Sure. So GitLab is software that helps developers collaborate. So it's software that helps you make better software.
Mm-hmm.
The meat of the product is version control. It's done with a technology called Git, which is gaining enormously in popularity. And we help people change the same code with a large team.
So it's a communication platform for developers?
Yes, you can see it as that.
Yeah, and GitLab is often compared to GitHub. Can you tell us what the difference is? Then we can get that out of the discussion.
Sure. So GitHub is very famous because many people host their open source software there. And the contrast is that GitLab is open source software. It's mainly used within companies. Many companies want to host their own code. They want to have code on their own servers connected to their other servers.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they have an identity provider like an LDAP server or something like that. They want to hook it up and they want to be in control of their code and know where it's stored.
Because of security issues?
Because of security, because of infrastructure issues, because of legal reasons, because of cost sometimes. There are many, sometimes because of performance. There are many reasons why you'd want to host your code and your collaboration within your company, or at least on servers you control.
Yes.
And for this, people use GitLab. GitLab is an open source product, so you can download it for free and get started, and more than 100,000 organizations have done so.
Yeah, and among them are really high profile names like NASA and CERN and SpaceX. So how did you get them on board, or is the technology so good that they found you?
Yeah, we don't do a lot of outreach. We're starting to do that more, really actively approaching enterprise customers. Mm-hmm. But so far it's been the popularity of the open source product. There are many downloads every month, and people that are considering to start using this kind of software, basically the best option, the best free option they have is GitLab. And
worldwide? Worldwide,
yeah. Most of our revenue is coming from America, but our downloads are also very heavy in China, in India, and Japan.
Mm-hmm. So you just touched upon the issue of revenue, and it's open source. So can you tell me how that goes about?
Yeah, that's hard to make money as an open source startup. In the beginning, I bankrolled it myself. But as we grew bigger, we figured out that we couldn't live off like donations alone. My co-founder called the donations ice cream money because that's all he could afford with it. And we did want to have a dedicated team because there's a lot of time that goes into release management, bug fixes, documentation, stuff that sometimes not so well done in other open source products.
Mm-hmm.
So we opted for an open core model. There's a GitLab Community Edition that's completely free under the MIT license. And then we have GitLab Enterprise Edition. The code is on the internet, it's public, but it has a proprietary license. If you want to use it legally, you'll have to get a subscription with us and pay $50 per user per year.
Yes, and that's the revenue model.
That's the revenue model. And we're very careful. Most features go into the community edition, but from time to time we pick a feature that's more relevant to larger organizations and we put it in the enterprise edition to give people an incentive to upgrade if their organization grows.
Yes. You just said that you bankrolled GitLab yourself in the beginning. So can you tell us a bit more about yourself and what you did before GitLab?
Sure.
And why actually you started with GitLab?
Sure. I studied a bit of physics and management science. Always very interested in technology. My first startup was during university. It was an infrared receiver that we started selling throughout the world. It was a relatively small business.
Where did you study, by the way?
Applied physics for 1 year and management science, bedrijfskunde.
Yeah.
After I graduated, I joined a very interesting startup as the first employee. I feel like a co-founder, although technically I wasn't a shareholder. It's called U-Boat Works, and we sold, and still U-Boat Works is selling the most recreational submarines
in the world.
In the world.
Wow.
So this is a worldwide thing. They just came back from the Monaco Yacht Show, where they sold a couple of these submarines you put at the back of your 50-meter plus yacht.
So GitLab is actually your second global technology firm.
I'm not sure. But yeah,
or becoming the second one.
It's Bert Housman's firm, but yeah, it felt global, and we even traveled to like Thailand and faraway places to start the company. So it felt like a global thing.
Yeah, you recently raised in a couple of months 5.5 million from tier 1 investors. How did that go about? How did you manage to get 500 startups, Gitlab Ventures, and those kind of VCs on board?
What greatly helped is us participating in Y-Combinator in the beginning of this year. At the end of Y-Combinator, they really help to like prep your company, prep your story, but also introduce you to investors. And Y-Combinator ends with a big demo day where you get to meet hundreds of investors.
Yes. And that's where you met also Gitlab Ventures, for example.
Gitlab Ventures was an introduction from our mentor.
Yes.
Our mentor was Kazar. He's now COO of Y-Combinator. He's an amazing person, and he was kind enough to introduce us to somebody at Gitlab Ventures. And after a few talks, they decided not to wait for demo day, but made their initial investment before that time.
Great, great. So the obvious question is, of course, why did you apply for Y-Combinator? Because GitLab, as far as I know, was quite successful even before entering the program.
It was going really well, but what we saw happening in the market is that companies had all these different version control technologies within the same company. Many of our users and customers are also users and customers of our competitors, and we noticed that one of our customers canceled their subscription because higher ups had said the whole company will standardize on one of our competitors. And we were really sad because they were really happy with the product. But going forward, it makes sense to work with the same technology throughout the company because you then can collaborate better. It's called inner sourcing. You open source within the company, so people from another team and another division can participate and reuse solutions.
Using the same language.
Yeah, and we think that is the future. And we know that if we want to be there, we have to become one of the major players. So we needed to grow faster. We wanted to go from a product-oriented company to a growth-oriented one. And we thought Y-Combinator was the best way to kickstart that.
Yes, and how did you apply? Because they're quite strict, as far as I know.
Yeah. If they always say if it's a good idea, you'll manage to get in. So don't let anybody be discouraged from applying. We did our best trying to fill out all the questions, looked a bit on the internet, what they were looking for. We recorded a video. But I think what helped us was the size of our community. More than 800 people had participated at that time. More than 100,000 organizations were using GitLab, and that is what in the end brought us in.
The validation, the market validation they were looking for.
Yeah, that's validation that gives them pause and at least gets you in front of them.
Exactly.
And then when you're in front of them, you have to give really short answers.
Yes. So that's why you give short answers.
That's why you don't want to waste anybody's time.
No. You're one of the few Dutch startups that entered the Y-Combinator program. Can you tell us a bit more about what are the do's and don'ts?
Yeah, well, it was one thing that we're really glad we did is we brought the whole team over. So almost everybody was flown out to Mountain View, California. We rented a large house and did the typical startup thing of like working from the living room. It was winter, and we didn't have a pool, so it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty close. Okay. And it was really inspirational to like focus so much with the whole team. You don't want to work so hard for the rest of your life, but you're just surprised by what you can ship.
Going all in for a few weeks, few months.
Yeah, and there's your peers at Y-Combinator are an enormous inspiration. We were already a bit further with our business, but if you see that people can go from 0 to quite something in a few months, and you see the progress every week, we were like, oh my goodness, we have to go faster. So we went faster. There was one person who was behind in the Netherlands, and at a certain point he said, like, I'm not sure what you people are doing, but it's crazy. It's all you're going too fast.
And is that because you're putting more hours into it, or is that because you have much more support and those kind of things? What's the main difference?
Your ambitions are just raised. So you're focused, like, you pick one goal, with us it was to increase the number of downloads, and you're just going to focus on that and do everything to make
one
that
single metric.
Yeah.
And
you take more risk, but you put more hours in it. You work more efficiently.
And how does Y-Combinator help in that perspective?
I think one of the most important things is that there are many other great startups and founders that are an inspiration to you. Other than that, they also have mentors.
Yes.
So they've seen a lot of startups, they know all the stuff that doesn't go well, so they have great advice. And then they bring in external speakers that brief you. For example, you were briefed on sales and marketing, and that was an eye-opener for me to learn how much that process could be standardized.
Yes.
It went from like black magic to something you can just apply, isn't it?
And is Y-Combinator in that respect very different compared to the accelerators and incubators you have here in the Netherlands and Europe?
A few differences. Y-Combinator sees more and better startups than anybody else. So they have a lot more experience. So their advice is going to be based on a lot more data.
Yes.
They're going to have better mentors because they have a larger pool of people to pick from. Like Peter Thiel is a part-time mentor now. They have a bigger network of alumni. So they have more successful startups that you can sell to, especially if you're in the enterprise space. Like selling to alumni companies is a great way to get your initial customers.
Exactly.
They have better speakers.
But the most interesting part, which is an eye-opener for me, is the inspirational part, which you just talked about. So having all these other startups around you that are really trying to go for the first place, that inspires you also to do the same.
Yeah, it does, and it's very simple. It's a form of like peer pressure. You try to conform to your social group, and if everybody,
but in a positive sense.
In a positive sense, but if everybody's going for a $1 billion company, suddenly you don't feel in the Netherlands. We thought we were doing pretty swell, and then you're there and you think, well, we're not ambitious enough. We should up our game, try harder, grow faster.
Is that actually not an issue? A problem in the Netherlands, the lack of ambition?
Well, if you have ambition without support, then you just fall flat on your face.
Yes.
So it is these mentors and also the entire ecosystem around it also enables it. So.
Yes. Well, that's true, but absolutely agree. But there is a lot of discussion also in the Netherlands. You also hear it from startups, but also from VCs, from the whole ecosystem, that sometimes we would like to see a bit more ambition in startup founders. Do you agree, or is that just rumors?
Who am I to say something about fellow startup founders?
Yes.
The people that want more ambition are mostly give that signal are not founders themselves.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And they never talk about the other things they could do. They could make visas even better, although they're helping. We got denied for our first request for to bring people in from abroad. On the other hand, we're helped a lot as well by the VBSO and other things. So it's different. It's also like the capital gains tax in America is 15%. Here it's quite different. There are lots of differences.
So in your opinion, one last point on this issue, in your opinion, there is there's no lack of ambition with Dutch startups.
I'm not sure, but if you want to get more inspired, definitely pay the West Coast to visit.
Okay.
And one thing else that Y-Combinator is doing different, which I think is a great thing and was an eye-opener to me, is that they're not an incubator where you set up shop. Like, they don't offer a co-working space. You work with your team from a certain house.
Yes.
And I think that's also that has a lot of benefits. And I think more
because you don't have the distraction from other
yeah, you can
companies.
focus on your work more, but also if you have a really crazy idea and you mingle with other people the whole time, then maybe they're going to talk it out of your head.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah. We just talked about GitLab being an open source platform, collaboration platform. You as a company are also approaching, so the philosophy for your company is also to be open as possible. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, we try to be open not only in our code, but also as a company. We're trying to close our internal issue tracker. If a customer has a request, we'll put it on a public issue tracker. We'll anonymize the company, the customer, obviously. But for the rest, we try to work in the open to prevent duplication and to give the rest of the community a chance to see what we're working on. We'll also try to be public in our internal processes, our handbook, our onboarding materials. Those are all online and version managed. And people contribute to them, and applicants tell us that we weren't handling them according to our internal procedure, which is great. It keeps us sharp. We also try to be open towards other people in the ecosystem. Competitors. There's another company in this market. It's called Perforce. They also do version control. And they've now decided to bundle GitLab with their product because they think GitLab is the best way to work with Git. So that's amazing. On one hand, you're competing with them in the marketplace, and on the other hand, you're open enough and you collaborate enough that they're shipping your product instead of making something in-house, which was also an option to them.
And how does that make business sense for you? Are you getting a share out of the products they're selling? How does that pan out business-wise?
They contribute to the product. Okay. So when they find a mistake, when their customer has a problem and they make a fix, they'll send it back to us, and they've done so already on multiple occasions.
So they're really improving your product.
They're improving. We're improving GitLab together. It's not our product. It's a shared product, and we think if GitLab is successful, GitLab Inc., our company, will also be.
You just raised $5.5 million. What are your plans for the future, and what can we expect from GitLab?
We raised that money to hit the gas pedal. We want to go faster, so we hired marketing people, sales people. We're hiring more developers, more service engineers. So we want to make sure that GitLab ships a great new release every month, and that our customers and users are really happy with that. And we want to become the way you collaborate on code. And so GitLab is not only the version control, but it's also issue management, a wiki to collaborate. It is CI and CD, so testing your code, deploying your code. And all these things can be improved, and we want to make sure that we can quickly respond to all the contributions that come in and to all the customer requests that come in.
Sid, congratulations with raising the new funds and with all your future plans. Thank you for being with us.
It was my pleasure completely.